Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll call the February 10th regular meeting for the Hudsonville Public Schools District to order. We have all board members present tonight with the exception of Larry Kavanagh and Mark Davis, who are someplace warm, sunny, and far south of Michigan this evening. So we hope they're enjoying their time down south. Can I have a motion and second, please, to approve the agenda? Motion by Chad Tuttle. Support by Dawn Sneeden. Any questions or comments on the agenda? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Next up, we have Student Council report. I think Andy's here with us.
Yes, there we go. Throughout the past couple weeks on Student Council, we've been nominating and electing students for our next year's exec board. So lots were nominated and lots actually ran for a position. So our new president is Avery Morin. Vice president is Ethan DeLine. Secretary, Trey Carr. Treasurer is Brock Beamer, and our new PRO is Briella Beamer. I will actually have Briella here with me next meeting just so she can kind of get a feel for like how the meetings work. Tomorrow is Half a Heart Day at school to celebrate Valentine's Day. Our school's climate committee has been working very hard on cutting out individual hearts and putting numbers on them. So essentially each student will get half a heart, and throughout the day they have to find their match. It's super fun and we love doing it. Our school culture committee actually has been working hard to come up with a new positive idea to promote throughout the school. So that is our next task. That's actually all I have for an update today. Any questions?
Questions?
Is the half a heart tomorrow?
Yes. Yep.
We better make sure we're in school then tomorrow.
Yes. All right.
Thank you, Andy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming.
Yep.
Okay, next up we have the COVID Relief Fund's public hearing. And Ms. Taylor, I believe you're taking this.
Good evening. So we are here this evening to present an initial plan around COVID relief funds during this public hearing portion of the meeting tonight. The COVID relief funds, as you know, by way of reminder, are really around not only mitigation of COVID so that we can maintain face-to-face instruction, which we know is vital for our students' progress academically and socially, and to I guess, continue to nurture their mental health. We know that that is a key piece. Also, priorities under the COVID relief funds are around mental health supports and services, as well as academic supports and services. And so the last month, we are so thankful that Andy Secor, our state and federal program coordinator, came on board about a month ago and then really continued to dig a little deeper into that meaningful consultation with all of our stakeholders to guide the plan that you'll see tonight and hear about tonight from Andy. We're super thankful for that. We're super thankful for our administrators and teacher leaders who contributed to the thinking around this as well. I would also just like to share gratitude to our entire central office team. There's a tremendous amount of collaboration that has been needed because not only does it entail programming development that comes around the curriculum office team, but also student services, certainly the business office around figuring out budgets, and then certainly with HR collaboration around any potential postings that we move forward with to provide these supports for our students. So super excited to share where we're headed. I think that we have a great plan in place for providing supports not only for teachers, but also our administrators and ultimately our students. And so excited to extend a welcome to Andy Secor to talk a little bit more about our draft plan.
While Andy's walking up, I'll note that Larry Kavanagh is with us this evening. We thought you were still down south, Larry, someplace warm.
I never made it.
Well, we're glad you're here.
All right, I'm back. Seems like we've been along this journey together, right? Since the last two work sessions and board meeting, and been able just to share with you and have some great conversations with our community and with our staff. I think the best part about all of this is, like, I can use the word "our" a lot. Like, it's really our ideas, it's our thinking, it's our plan, it's feedback that's been gathered from the community and from our staff. We had the opportunity to share some initial thinking with principals today, be able to share with you tonight, and then have some ideas on getting the information posted on our website so all the community can take a look at the first draft plan, and then in addition, something to our teachers tomorrow. So in the information that you received, I think if you want to start at the meaningful consultation page, which is actually the back page, just because I think it's important to ground ourselves in the steps that were taken. We didn't just hire me and shove me in the closet dungeon downstairs and say, hey, come up with a bunch of ideas on how to spend this money. We went through an exhaustive, meaningful consultation with all stakeholders, started even before I was brought on board. You can see the pieces with the survey, to time spent with teachers, time spent with leadership team, opportunities for grade level and department chairs, community member meetings in groups, one-on-one, on the phone, via email, continuous updates to the Board of Education, and then finally getting to the point today where we feel like we have an initial draft and some initial thinking. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through a couple of pages that were provided to you, highlighting kind of to start the summary, and then we'll get into some of the details and take thinking and questions. So I think the biggest component is that the feedback we received was that people help people. And the people that need to be supported are first our students, and then second our staff. So by adding staff members to support behaviors and academics, we not only support our students who are in most need of that support and those impacted by the pandemic, but also our staff who are working tirelessly on a daily basis to do things harder and more challenging than ever before. So by hiring people that allow our staff to get better, obviously that is a trickle-down effect that impacts our students. So I think it's important to note that these positions not only are direct support to students, but they're also going to be a significant support to teachers, parapros, office staff, principals, PBI specialists, and all of those people that are taking on additional work because of the number of students that are in need. And the data sets from us, first with behavior and second with academics, would say just kind of how much those students are in need and what those things are that those students desperately need and deserve. So on your first page, there's just kind of a rundown of those positions that we would like to use, that we would like to consider hiring. And I want to continue to use the word potential because these are positions that we're going to post. And I think, when we started this process at the very beginning, I think Barb used the word kind of a hiring bonanza. And I think that phrase is relevant because as we start to see more positions posted by other districts, we're going to be in that game. And I think some of our funding is different, some of our positions are different, but I do want to continue to use the phrase potential positions because we have to find people to fill these. So if we think about the 3 buckets of money that we've been talking about all along, those are the ESSER 3 funds, which are the purple positions listed up there, and then the Section 11T, which are listed in yellow, and then a couple pages back, we'll get to the Section 31L. So just a quick overview. The ESSER 3, you might also hear that as called ARP, American Rescue Plan. Those are a continuation of funds that have been provided to us since the pandemic started. So there was the CARES Act, which is basically ESSER 1, then there was ESSER 2, and then this is ESSER 3. So this is a continuation of those funds. That's roughly $985,000 for our district. And those are the funds where there's 15 different buttons that you have to be able to push to qualify for those. And the regulations are not quite as strict as the other 2 buckets of money, which we would be applying to use. The second one, which is those that are listed in yellow, which is section 11T, which for us would be 14 positions at an estimated $4.3 million. Those are the subgroup specific positions, and we'll talk about a little bit what that means in a moment. And then on the bottom, you see the $465,000, the 5 positions from section 31O, and those are the positions that have to be school nurse, school psychologist, social worker, or school counselor. So looking at kind of what's listed on what's on the screen and in the initial summary, you're looking at a total of 24 positions. 4 of those would be positions that we've already hired, that we would be retroactively charging to some of these funds because we're able to do so. And then 20 of those positions would be new positions. And the breakdown there of 14 academic, 3 mental health support, 3 specific to special education, 2 specific to English language learners, and then 2 very specific to behavior support. So I think that's really the big picture overview of those positions and those 3 initial buckets of funding. So before I dive into additional details, thoughts, questions, or things, because otherwise I'll just talk for 20 minutes nonstop.
Just to be clear on the positions, the funding is limited, and so is the intent that we would structure the positions as also being time limited unless alternative funding became available?
Yeah, we were just talking about the wording of that in terms of communication with staff. We know that the funding, that you have to spend every penny by December 2024. The timing of that is not also fantastic because it's the middle of the school year, right? So our conversations to this point have been letting people know, similarly when we hired our PBIS specialists this last year, and we let them know that their positions were going to be funded for 3 years, and then after that, they'd be guaranteed a position in our district, but we weren't sure which one it would be. It would be similar for this, except it would likely be 2 years that position would be guaranteed for. All right, those next couple of pages that you have in front of you, the first one that's highlighted with American Rescue Plan, ARP3, those are really specifically, when we go to fill out this application with the government, what statutes do we have to be mindful of, and which of those tie to those specific buckets of funding. So if we think specifically about the ARP ESSER 3 funds, our plan has 2 PBIS specialists, which we already have at all the elementary levels. That would be a continuation of that. That would be done at the middle school level, 1 at Baldwin, 1 at Riley. In our conversations with middle school personnel, their number 1 ask was to support student behavior. And so we thought it was important to hear and understand that. Their suspension data, their behavior data speaks to that. And so we wanted to be mindful of that, and when we were thinking about positions that we wanted to add and add quickly, those were the things that our middle school staff shared. The other pieces that are in the ESSER 3 are the 2 academic support paraprofessionals at the high school. High school staff felt strongly that being able to support students who aren't yet at grade level, who are struggling with credits, who might need help before, during, or after school. The tag para, which we currently have one already working in the district, that would be a second person that's tutoring to achieve academic growth. So there would be 2 of those then working at the high school. And then the ALC stands for Alternative Learning Center. So those would be 2 specific academic supports at the high school that will fall under and work under structures that they already have existing. So the tag para is a second one that they already have, and the ALC para is just replacing a position that they had lost. And then the last position listed in ESSER 3 is the MTSS building interventionist. The only reason it's listed there is because of how the salary number works to fit into the total allotment of $985,000. So that's why it might look a little weird, like, Andy, why don't you just put all 11 of the MTSS building interventionists in there? Well, some of the other positions that are listed in the Section 11T component, special ed coordinator and both of the EL teachers, hit directly on the subgroups that we have to hit on for Section 11T. So those couldn't as easily be moved or flip-flopped into the other funding source. So those are the ESSER 3 components. The other component about ESSER 3 that's important to mention is any continued COVID mitigation and prevention will come from that bucket. So when you're talking about PPE, when we're thinking about like additional recess staff, additional lunch duty, at the elementary level, sometimes additional people to help before school, after school for busing. So that's why there's a $985,000 ESSER 3 total allotment for us, and you see $916,000 listed there. So that's how we've been consistently spending some of the CARES Act and the ESSER 2 money. So the additional funds that are not listed there would be specific to COVID mitigation and prevention, and us doing the things we've continued to do to keep us in person for learning. Beneath there, you can see then the second bucket of money, which is 11T, which is the subgroup specific money. So again, I think when Pat and I talked today, this is the component of the plan that I'm most excited about, because in our very first conversation, Chad mentioned and we talked about together, how do you spend this amount of money on one of the smallest populations of students? And so having conversations with our stakeholders and also with people at the state level to make sure that we could allot funds in a way that would put boots on the ground to specifically support academic needs of students, which is how we came up with the MTSS building interventionist role. So that would be an academic support person. If you were to think about it in a flow chart wise, at the secondary, elementary level, you have a principal, and then at the elementary level, right underneath there is a behavior support. You have social work, PBIS, and all of those layers. But on the academic side, there really isn't that person, right? So when we have a child study, when we sit down to discuss and talk about a student that's not yet learning, that falls upon teacher, principal, additional duties for those people. This would be that go-to person academically in each school for the students that are not yet learning. And the data that we've looked at initially and in conversations with the building principals, they will tell you that a high percentage of those students are students that fall into one of these subgroups in our district. So they're either low academic, special ed, EL, foster care, homeless, or they're a student of color. So I think that's important for us to know. There's going to be a lot of monitoring and a lot of planning and a lot of pieces that we're going to have to do to make sure that our people that are in this Section 11T bucket are truly supporting those students. But I think as we've talked about before, we also have additional staff members that are support staff members at all buildings that don't have all of these restrictions. So I think this not only will free them up to support some other specific students, once these 11T staff members are hired and really focused on those specific subgroups.
Just a question on that. So
Yep.
are we saying the interventionist can only focus on one subgroup of students? And so it's sort of a division of responsibilities, but then how will we have appropriately identified those students? Is that something that foundationally is already in place, or?
Yeah, well, I mean, when we look at, the only question that I think we still have is getting further clarification on what low economic means. Because to me, it means free and reduced lunch, but I haven't seen that in writing, that that's exactly what that means. So all of these other subgroups are information that either Melissa Bernard has, Mandy Thomas has, like those are students that we've already been able to identify. I think that's the one that we still feel like we need further clarity on.
And then another question, is there already established parameters as far as determining outcome? In other words, built into this money, do we already have sort of a rubric for how to determine whether the money was worth it at that point?
Yeah, you just wrote my job description for the next 6 months. I think first, you are going to want to have an internal structure, right, that you're going to decide upon. First, the monitoring aspect, which is going to be significant, especially with the 11T funds. Not as much with the 31O funds, which we'll talk about next. So what are the monitoring pieces that are going to be required? and what are the monitoring pieces, because sometimes we want to monitor above and beyond just what's required. And then second, I was just in a great conversation with our curriculum team about after-school tutoring and what some of the outcomes they've had for that and for summer school and for some of those pieces. So I think those will be vital to us for looking at each of these. How do we prove the MTSS building interventionist role is worthwhile? What are the very clear, specific, tangible numbers, percentages, data pieces that we feel like will help us to be successful? So continuing on with those 11 T pieces, so then you have the MTSS building interventionist and then MTSS district coordinator. So that group is going to be a professional learning community. That's going to be 11 people who are going to be out on a daily basis supporting academic intervention within buildings. But as we talked about at our administrative team meeting today, like we also need to approach this in the systems way. Just thinking that I'm going to take Johnny and I'm going to send him down to the reading teacher and the reading teacher is going to fix him and then he's going to come back to me. Well, and potentially in 2 years that reading teacher might not be there. So what can we do systematically to be able to improve that process of how we identify students, the menu of supports and strategies that are available to them, and if this person then is gone, how is that system improved? So that MTSS district coordinator is essentially going to be in charge of those 11 individuals, but also setting systems and structures in place for our MTSS process, which I think we would all share looks a little different at different schools. And so how do we, when we have a kid come to a child study MTSS meeting at Allward or Jamestown or Baldwin, how do we have a similar process? How do we have similar intervention strategies? What data are we collecting? How do we know that that's being successful? What's the universal time that we're going to check back in? How do we know when it's ready for that student to be assessed for special education? All of those pieces. So I think that MTSS district coordinator is really going to be the systems person working in our curriculum office, not only to support those 11 people, but then also to support the systems that support kids. And then the other two pieces are, so the special ed coordinator. So that position really, when we think about curriculum resources, professional development for our resource room and special education staff, how do we put our staff, our resource room teachers specifically, I think of, and I know Mandy thinks of a lot of groups, in the best position to be successful. So how do we make sure that they have the best curriculum, the best resources, the best training, the best programs? So again, it can be a little bit more of a systematic approach where if I'm struggling with a student at Jamestown that's significantly LD in reading and our primary intervention hasn't worked, how do I have a go-to person specifically for special education that can support some of those curriculum and resource needs? So that's a little bit of and that was a primary topic of discussion within the special education department. And then the last pieces are EL teachers. Any of you who know English learner teachers in our district and the number of students that they support and the number of buildings that they have to get to, I think it's one of the hardest jobs in our district. And we have students coming to us with different languages all the time, more and more often, and they're covering multiple buildings, and just doesn't allow them to provide service in a model that's most successful. So knowing that that's a specific subgroup that's listed, that's one where adding additional support really makes sense. And then the last bucket, if you look at the section 31.0, which is on the following page. So that's money that is allotted that we can apply for. So, and to be honest with you, and talking to other people doing some of these roles, like we might get full reimbursement, we might get partial reimbursement. There's a specific pot of money that the state has that they said you can hire these 4 positions for. Those also happen to be 4 of the hardest positions to find anywhere in the public school system. So 3 of those we have hired previously that we'll be asking the state, we'll be applying to charge their 100% of their salary and wages this year towards Section 31.0. 66% the next year, 33% in year 3, and then we would be paying full in the following year. And then 2 additional staff members, a social worker and a school psychologist that could start and morph in different buildings throughout the course of their time, but additional support that we would try to get really to support the mental health of our students. And that's kind of what that bucket of money speaks really specifically to, that 31.0. A couple other pieces, I think the hiring plan, I think, Ann will talk a little bit and continue to talk about in the job description piece. A lot of times you might think, hey, can we just get as many paraprofessionals, as many interventionists? Could we just post 30 of them and get 2 reading teachers in every school? We have parapro jobs that have been open for a year that we haven't been able to fill. So when you think about the potential hiring, some of that is how can we post positions that I think potentially some really skilled educators internally and in the area might apply for, which allows their ripple down effect and their impact to be even greater. We have some amazing educators in our district that might just want to have an impact on a different level, which then allows us to backfill in their positions, which are grade level positions, which is not only funding savings, but those are positions that for the most part we've been able to hire. So I think that hiring component, I think, is an important part of the plan, and I think one that really, as we talk about the 2 years and the guaranteed amount of time, I think that's, like I said, I just think that's a super important part of the plan. That I think when our staff hears of some of these positions and people in the area hear some of these positions, I think that they'll be positions that people want to do and want to have an impact, and especially working here in Hudsonville.
Can I ask a couple more?
Of course,
questions?
all right.
So, for a second, back to the Section 11T funds.
Yeah.
So with the ESSER, you said anything that is remaining may be spent on COVID mitigation, PPE, that type of stuff. What about the 11T? If there's funds that we aren't able to fill all these positions and we're not on track to spend all the funds, are there non-staffing related eligible expenses that we can spend the remainder on? Curriculum, materials, or others?
Yeah, so we've talked about some of those pieces, and I did neglect to kind of leave out there some questions and some next steps, I think, that are on the next page too, which could speak to some of those. But one of the challenges is, like, I talked to Craig Steenstra about device renewal. Like, would device renewal be a spot that fits in there really well? And that's something that we could potentially do. I have an exhaustive list of conversations based on the conversations that I've had. The challenge with something like that would be we can renew the devices, but we can only give them to students in those subgroups. So I think that there will be some challenges. All of the money is not allocated at this time, but I do think that there are additional things. The other piece is that the Section 11T application hasn't even opened yet. So once it opens, we have 90 days in order to submit that application. So I think that allows us some additional time to unearth some of those types of things. I think Craig's thing is just one example, but things along those lines too.
And one last question for me is, I know last meeting I had asked if the funds can be spent in any particular partial FTE way, which is, I think we would all struggle with saying, well, we've got a very talented individual in school, but they're only allowed to work with some students, they might have connections with others. Is there a way to say, well, 0.9 of their FTE or 0.8 of their FTE can be focused on those who qualify, and 0.2 is available for the other students that might not fall in those categories?
That is something that we could choose to do. And I think even when thinking about summer school planning, like, that's something where, go too far on that, but like, we could invite all students that we feel like are eligible and charge 75% of this person's salary to 11T and then other to a general fund or something else along those lines. So that would be an option for us.
Andy, and some of the other questions you had in there, one of the things you listed is airflow. Does that mean out of 11T funds we identified a school that we wanted to improve air quality and we could spend some of those funds there?
Only if the airflow only went to students in those subgroups.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Yes, I understand.
I say that not sarcastically, but actually in actuality.
So, can we continue? Do you want to continue, Andy? This is truly a public hearing, so we will also address questions from those in attendance that have questions on specifically these dollar amounts. So maybe we can continue with, I don't know, was Mrs. Armstrong going to talk a little about staffing, or did I miss that? Pat, you wanna talk about that, and then maybe we can see what questions might, for a true public hearing.
Good job, Andy. That was a lot. And as you can see, the how timely it was. Thanks to the board for supporting bringing somebody in who knew our district, had relationships, and get as much done as Andy has been able to achieve in the last couple of months is truly amazing. Into some of those earlier questions, as far as materials in 11T, if we did a refresh of Chromebooks, we could supplant and charge the amount of Chromebooks we're going to students with from a subgroup to the grade would be allowable. Just my closing piece before we go to questions from the public is that, and Andy didn't cover it, but these positions are incredibly vital, and we have, as Chad brought up, we have 2 years to spend this money. So at the end of that time, our expectation is we would evaluate the programs. The programs may be resized. We may prioritize other programs. We have at-risk funding. We have other funding streams. The positions, the program may change, but the people we would hire would still be employees, and we would look to other positions for them. And then Dr. Vanderjack, you want to open up questions from the public? I don't know if they're going to come up.
Yeah, so if anybody has a question, clarification, this is truly a hearing regarding these grant dollars. Either raise your hand, we'll bring you a mic, or we'll wait. We'll do the 20-second. I don't know if that seems like a long time. Any questions? Clarification.
Andy must have done a great job.
You did do a great job.
Are there any additional questions from the board for Andy or Pat?
Sorry, one.
Yep, please.
You mentioned there's 4 existing positions. Did I understand correctly that those are PBIS specialist positions, or is that different?
Yeah, no, that's different. It is, so in the section 31.0.
Oh, is that the social worker?
Yeah, there's a social worker, psych, counselor, and then 1 existing EL teacher. So those 4.
And then, Ann, I'm sorry, and maybe you've already talked about this, but the timing of this, when you say we have 2 years to spend it, we need to get out there and hire, in my mind, that's like gonna happen quickly.
Yep.
Then if someone in the district who is a classroom teacher wants that position, I guess speak a little bit to that, because
Yep.
I also hate to midstream lose a classroom teacher.
Yeah, and we won't. These positions will begin in the fall. So the positions that we have, the 4 that are already on, that we currently have, those are all positions of retirements or people left, and so that's great that we get that. And then we do the 2 that we have posted right now, which is the social work and the school psych. We have to have them hired by March 15, and they do have to work. So those are people that we are hoping to get. We're optimistic about the social worker. I'm going to stay optimistic about the school psych. But the rest of the positions, we actually anticipate, just like our PBIS positions that we posted last year around this time and hired, 4 of those went internal and 4 went external. So we anticipate some going internal. So I'm right there with you. I do not want anything to disrupt this current school year, and it won't interrupt that. But I do think based on who we know we're gonna get, we can do some really great anticipation. You know, we already have some great long-term subs and student teachers that are currently in our district, so what I would like to do is post these as soon as possible, get those positions, and the domino starts. And then if there are some more difficult positions that we have, and especially within the special ed realm, that even if we went ahead and hired people and they worked just, and we doubled up the month of May even, you know, and I'm thinking, just so that there's some training and mentorship, that would be amazing. So I got a plan, Dawn. We're gonna do this. Okay.
Other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we will call the COVID Relief Fund public hearing to a close. And before we move on to consent agenda items, just a really nice job, Andy and team, in preparing this and getting the public, all the input from the public, the various stakeholders and buildings and so on. I mean, just really well done with a really complex topic. So thank you for all your work on this. Nice job, nice job. Okay, we move on to action items, consent agenda. Can I have a motion and second, please, to approve the consent agenda items? Motion by Don, support from Steve. Any questions or comments? I note that we have the job descriptions for those positions in the consent agenda, so we're approving those as part of this. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. We move on to regular action agenda. First up, we have the eRate bid recommendation. Mr. Briggs, you're taking this.
Yes, it has been a year or two, maybe 2 years since we've brought an eRate purchase recommendation to the board. For a little bit of background, well, just the first of all, to highlight the recommendation, it is to purchase 96 wireless access points, 22 network switches, and associated warranty for the devices from Sentinel Technologies of Downers Grove, Illinois, for $249,236. Sentinel also has a Grand Rapids office. We're using them for some other radio frequency wireless testing in the district, but their actual purchase will come from their headquarters in Downers Grove. But the some background, the eRate program is it's on most of our phone bills, and it goes into a fund, and schools get reimbursed basically based on their poverty level. Hudsonville doesn't get funded for everything, but we do get funding for some hardware. Other schools get funding for their phone connections, things like that. We don't get funding for that because of our low poverty level, but we do get 50% funding on these items. And the plan is, if approved, we would make the purchase with the 2019 bond funds, and then the reimbursement, if we pretty confident we would get reimbursed because we're in compliance with the program, reimbursement would go back into the bond fund. So that's the highlights. And the reason in eRate you don't normally get a lot of bids is because it's really hard for vendors to get qualified. So it's a lot of extra compliance, a lot of extra qualification work for them, a lot of monitoring by the government. And so, but the bids are fair, and we've seen that Sentinel, we've not used them before we started using them for this wireless project, but they have 45 other schools in the state that they've had good success in working with the eRate program, so we're confident in them as a vendor. So.
Okay, can I have a motion and second, please, to approve the eRate bid recommendation for $249,236 as reviewed by Mr. Briggs? Motion by Barb's, support from Jed. Questions or comments?
Does the installation of this then come out of a bond bid already, or
Great question, great question. So this, most of this, because of where it is for the, it's in the new facilities, new 5-6, new high school, new high school connector in the auditorium. There'll be some installation, be done by basically the trades we have in place now. Some will be done by the electricians that were hired for these projects. Some will be done actually by our own staff. But yeah, they'll be done by the basically contractors for the bond work. Sentinel is a supplier of the material only. Good question.
Pat, these have a 7-year warranty. Will before 7 years, will the technology again surpass this and we'll be back here talking about it? Or
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
The switches are pretty, I know somebody that installed switches at Baldwin School over 20 years ago, and a lot of those switches we still use today. There are ways to upgrade them. Some of them are upgradable, but the switches pretty much just they're conduit. But there always are better switches, smarter switches. But these switches and access points, especially from Cisco, they're very durable and they'll last. I would be surprised if we weren't using them in 10 years.
Other questions or comments? Okay, we have a motion on the table. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. And then we go to bus purchase recommendation. Mr. Bridge, you're taking this as well?
Yes, thank you. So to highlight the recommendation, we are asking for approval to purchase 8 77-passenger buses from Hofstra Transportation, Grand Rapids, for $859,136, along with the, our mechanics have recommended we go along with the corrosion warranty. This time, it is back and forth based on the model and what's included. We're gonna also include the adjustable front row seating. I can talk more about that later. And the engine brake feature for a total of $877,960. This funding stream is coming from the enhancement millage, and it was one of the big 3 legs of the millage was transportation, mental health supports, and security. And it really, that was one of the big helps for the millage in the first place. And we, as in Hudsonville, we transport to not only our public school students, but our private Christian school students. Last year, and one of the goals of the board was to definitely get our fleet younger. I'm not sure if I said that right, but when we started this, the average age was over 12 years. More over 12 years than I'm proud of, but it was over 12 years. And at the end of this process, the average age will be down to 8.6 years. Last year was 9.5. As you notice in the recommendation, we're also, through Rob's great leadership in the department, he's applying for EPA grants. It's a clean diesel program of $20,000 a bus. So I'm sure you also noticed that the buses are considerably more expensive than they have been in the past. So that increase in inflation, if we're successful with the grant program, we will we'll break even. Just a little bit more, Hofstra is not the low bidder. They have been the low bidder in the past, and Midwest Transit is slightly below them. And Rob and the mechanics looked thoroughly at the international, and we just can't get a corrosion warranty from them. They don't even offer it. So we believe this is the best fit for our department. And lastly, if you look in the replacement schedule, you'll see that the 8 that we're replacing are all Freightliners. And as Mr. Matthews has explained to me, the Freightliner FS65 is still eligible for the clean diesel. It's dirty diesel. That vehicle can be replaced with that grant. And after this year, we'll only have 5 of those buses left. So the rest of the Thomas C2s must be considered clean burners because they're not eligible for the program. That concludes the report.
Okay, can I have a motion that the board approve the recommendation to purchase 8 77-passenger buses from Hoekstra Transportation for a total cost of $877,960? Motion by Dawn. Support from Chad. Questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
Number 9 and 10, unit numbers 24 and 29, they're both Freightliners, but they have a lot higher mileage than like number 7 and 8.
Yes.
I know the years are a little bit different, you know, they're, but like one of them's 2006. How do you determine which ones to replace?
Yeah, so this is a little bit of, we had to place those buses, and I'm trying to remove sarcasm from it, but we had to put buses back on the road in order to be eligible for the grant. So the buses, the first 8 are, they're on the road, they're in service, but they're the ones that need to go. Those other buses, even though they're great point, they don't have the miles, but the ones that are out there, there's a chassis issue, there's a body issue, there's some other issue where those are the first 8. Thanks for that question.
Other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of the motion, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Pat?
Thank you, and just can't thank enough. Through a year like this with everything else that Robin mechanics, 4 hours of their day they're on the road. They still took the time to work up this pricing and get these schedules together. And just great leadership by Rob, and just great. We got a great transportation department.
Yeah, great job. I see Rob there. He's right there. Thanks, Rob. Thanks for all your comments. Okay, next we move on to textbook adoption, first reading.
Yeah, so I'd ask Mrs. Taylor to give an update on the 2 recommendations we have for textbooks. You'll notice that the rule of curriculum is something we've discussed at the work session. We'd like to continue to discuss that moving forward as we dive into some more of the data and information we receive from not only our teaching staff, our administrators, but our public. So tonight we're just going to look at AP Bio and the middle school social studies.
I think the only comment that I would add in regard to any follow-up from the work session that these were reviewed at, that I was not able to be here, it sounded as if there was a question primarily around how does the AP Biology textbook differ from the previous textbook, and what are some of the reasons for the update. And so a couple of those pieces are, it really allows for ease of integration of instructional technology due to the digital access within this textbook, as well as the increased alignment with the AP Bio College Board standards, which are critical for success on the AP exam. So those updates will be vital for this textbook moving forward. So that would be for the first reading recommendation this evening. Are there any other questions about the AP Biology text? And then the other first reading curriculum requests this evening are around 6th and 7th grade National Geographic, World Cultures and Geography, which would be a textbook as well as access to e-text as well.
Okay, we did have a chance to review, thanks for the clarification, Amy. We did have a chance to review these in the work session, so I'll take a motion now that the board approve the first reading of a textbook adoption for AP Biology and for middle school social studies as reviewed by Ms. David. Motion by Barb, support report from Larry. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, I did bring home the 6th grade social studies version, because I've got a 6th grader in social studies who does not have a textbook.
Correct.
And so we did have a chance to compare this to the current class materials, and it's not a good comparison.
Indeed.
Sooner we can get this in the classrooms.
Absolutely, and I think that has been a struggle over the course of many years for middle school as we were waiting for the new standards to be released, and then it was time to hit go now. So we're thrilled, and I'm glad to get that feedback from you as a parent as well. Thank you.
I did learn.
The teacher's edition of the student.
Okay, great. We have a motion on the table. All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carried. Those are the action items. We move on to report items. First up is Section 98B Goal Progress Report. And Ms. Taylor, you're taking this as well?
Yes, so by way of reminder, 98B doesn't tell us much, right? But it is a COVID requirement for us to report at our first board meeting in February, and once again then before the final day of school, about benchmark assessment data. And so as you may remember, I reported similar data last year 2 times throughout the year. A change to the report this year is that it's not only district data, but there's also a requirement of individual building data goals, as well as reporting on those goals. So you'll notice in your packet, there's a lengthy report there with building data, as well as district data. So the district data that you have, I'll highlight first. Primarily, the legal obligation is really to conduct the benchmark assessments, test regularly for K through 8 students, as well as then establish those achievement or growth goals. For our high school, this does look a little bit different, but I'll cover that. I'll cover our K through 8 assessment report first. So on the report, the district report in particular, you'll see the goals posted at the top. And just like last year, kindergarten is a proficiency goal. So that's the number of students or percent of students who are exhibiting proficiency on the standards in kindergarten as of the January report card. That is allowable by statute, and we decided to proceed with that proficiency goal because we were able to maintain our current assessment practices for our youngest students that were in place prior to COVID, in essence. And then you'll also see that 1st through 8th grade, we are measuring student growth percentiles, which are also allowed by statute and representative really of student growth versus proficiency measured by the assessment tool, again, used prior to COVID, which is our STAR Renaissance assessment tool. SGPs, or student growth percentiles, compare a student's growth from fall to winter in this case, with scores of his or her academic peers nationwide, which is defined as students in the same grade with a similar scaled score history. And so those SGPs help us really understand, given where a student started, to what extent the growth achieved was as expected. So an SGP of 50 can be thought of as typical growth for a student, given his or her grade level and prior score history. So when we look at the percentage of students who are hitting that student growth percentile, that is right where we would see that or expect them to be when we look at our district data. There are pockets that are below that, and there are certainly pockets who are achieving above that student growth percentile expected. We do keep this data in perspective. This is one test measure on one given day. When we sit down for our benchmark meetings, we are looking as much as possible to triangulate that data. There are many assessment tools that teachers use, whether it be unit assessments or other progress monitoring tools that we use to dig a little deeper, to learn more about students, to be able to provide interventions. So we're looking at all of those data pieces. So we enter into this data with that perspective in mind as well, but it's certainly utilizing the student growth percentiles does allow us to look through the lens specifically around district data, building data, and grade level data that can guide some conversation at this meaningful time where we can still potentially make some any changes that might be necessary. So we have principal meetings coming up next week. We'll be digging into this a little bit at the administrative team level, and then encouraging our principals to dig in at the building level as well to their specific building level data to find anything that's meaningful that causes pause for any action or problem solving at that time. At the high school level, you'll notice that report is actually at the very back of your packet. It's the final page of this particular attachment. But at the high school, that is also new this year, again, because each building needed a goal. We were trying to find something that was meaningful that we could dig into while showing progress or tracking ways that we may need to intervene in meaningful ways. So you'll see that the goal is to be keeping track of the percent of students who are on track for graduation at the conclusion of each trimester. We know that is a critical piece of supporting our students and figuring out how to come alongside students during the middle of the trimester. Our counselors are phenomenal at running reports and communicating with teachers, and then with current intervention practices and tutoring practices, but then also as we forecast to next year with any additional positions that you just heard about through our COVID relief dollars. We're excited about the expansion of some of those opportunities to support students as we notice that they are needing that additional assistance in order to pass the class to stay on track for graduation. A caveat around that we are, I hope, depending on the workshop session agenda in a few weeks and how lengthy that may be, I hope to also present some data that we've been tracking at the high school level in regard to the number of students who are on track for graduation, but it's not really showing the whole picture, that we do have a larger number of students, for example, in first trimester this year who left Hudsonville Public Schools than the number of students who left Hudsonville Public Schools last trimester. So we're digging into that data to say, who are these kiddos? Why did they leave? Where did they go? And so I'm hoping to share that data. I don't want to give too much of a preview without full context, but I think that will guide a lot of our conversation around a SOAR goal, around alternative paths to graduation. So we don't want to miss students just because they're not showing up in this data, because they're leaving because they are realizing they're credit deficient. And that has to do with our graduation credit requirements here in Hudsonville and so forth. So there's lots of layers to that, but I did want to mention it because I think it's a piece of data that I'm glad we're paying attention to, and I think there can be some significant intentionality around programming, support for students, et cetera, as we move forward.
In terms of the high school data, so the 12th grade data looks very high, and the 9th grade data looks very high. The 10th and 11th are obviously lagging a bit. I'm wondering if there's any observations around that. Is that expected? Surprising?
I think that's the piece where we're at now, and because now the data is all compiled, that we'll be having that conversation with administrators, but then also encouraging them to dig into that data with their teams at their building levels. I don't have any big highlights around some of that data in the conversation I've had with high school staff at this point, but I think that's some of the work that still needs to be done with this particular data.
I did seem to notice somewhat of the same pattern with fifth grade reading, interestingly enough, other than, I think, 2 schools in our district who may receive some additional support in that area. I did notice that grade level, and the same question, I don't know whether you can speak to that now, or that's something you could present at the work session.
That's definitely something that we'll be digging into administratively, and then also with teachers and at the building level. So I could definitely dig into that a little bit more and see what evidence there might be for those lower numbers. But definitely those are exactly the types of things that this level of a report around student growth percentiles can lend itself to dialogue and potential intervention.
You do see students find more urgency if they get farther along in their high school career, that I need to get these credits. So we traditionally have seen that, and I know even in my past at the high school level, when they get closer to their senior year, you got to get closer to that graduation, so we see that number go.
Well, and that's what I wondered. Like, the freshmen haven't had as much of an opportunity per se to fall off the tracks, right? Because they're just getting started. You know, it was certainly good to see the seniors being much more on track. I was just curious, and I was more, I guess, just curious from the perspective of for the 10th and 11th, and these are kids who have missed a fair amount of school
Yes.
days in their high school career, and I wasn't sure if that's accurate.
I think that's one of the hypotheses is when we even look at the 10th graders, they didn't even have exams ever in their high school career until this year. So, you know, some of those pieces are part of a reality of an overall grade at the end of a trimester that becomes real. And so we want to figure out, and I think our staff, they were very proactive prior to exams and ensuring that they were doing exam prep and assisting students during seminar, thinking through what that support looks like, study habits, some of those things that have fallen off the radar during COVID, and so some intentionality around that. But we'll dig into that more. I'll make note of that to loop back, and certainly the 5th grade as well.
Okay, other questions around Section 98B progress reports? Great, thank you, Amy. We're up for administrative updates now. Amy, we'll start with you. Anything you want to cover? Since you're,
Gosh, sure.
since you're up there already.
Absolutely.
You have to grab the mic and pass it around.
Okay, I'll take this off. I think that the ad that I would have, aside from the other work that you heard about this evening, that this is the time of year that we start to project for next year. What programming, certainly moving forward with all of the COVID-19 programming, very excited about that and the potential of impact on students. But then you hear this word from me a lot. I'm a systems thinker in person, and I think that short term it can help students, but if we do it right, which is the goal, we'll also be developing and enhancing those systems so that as the individuals move away, we have those systems in place to continue at a higher level of intervention than what we have in the past at the classroom level. PD, that's also on our radar, professional development for next year as we start to transition with our curriculum team, and all things 2022-23 is on my radar right now. So, thank you.
Good evening. In special education, well, for all buildings and purposes, yesterday was count day, and while that's not necessarily an exciting event, it's an important event for us to just get a snapshot of where we are and how things have grown or changed. And in special education, yesterday we counted 987 students that we support within our 13 buildings and extending services to our non-public school neighbors. A bigger number than it was 5 years ago, and as that student population grows, we also see just our programs and services growing and changing. And already looking into the fall, we know that we will have special education openings, and that we will be competing with neighboring districts. So with the amazing foresight and charisma of my colleague Ann Armstrong, earlier this week we were able to meet with 5 up-and-coming graduates of Grand Valley's teacher preparation program, and really just got a chance to talk with them about what to look for in terms of comparing different districts and what we have to offer here in Hudsonville. We have an amazing team that works very closely together in special education, and that's true of all departments, but we have just great programs and services that support one another. And so as we move into the spring, which is crazy since it's freezing and it looks like it's going to get colder tonight, we are already thinking about fall and the ways that we can fill those positions. So thanks.
Hello. I don't want to steal any of Dr. Vanderjack's thunder, but I am going to just kind of update you on some amazing COVID news I see him shaking his head. But, we were topping out in the last 2 weeks where we were having over 100 plus cases a day in the district. And this week, Monday, we were at 13 cases district-wide. And then we had like 3 one day, we were at 7 today. So that's such encouraging news. But what I want to just reiterate to all of you is that when you see numbers in the hundreds, and I know you know this, but we don't have subs. And so what's happening is our amazing teaching staff, our amazing support staff, our administrators are stepping into those roles and making sure that kids are getting great care and instruction every single day. And it is a really tough year, as we all know, in every way, shape, and form within schooling, not just here, but within the county as far as shortages, and for our teachers not to be able to take that time during their planning to call parents or plan for the day. They're still doing that. They're just doing it before school, after school, because they're covering for their colleagues. So I just can't reiterate enough how thankful I am for our amazing staff, our amazing teachers and support staff and administrators, because we didn't have to shut down. We didn't have to do some things that other districts were doing when our numbers were soaring. So I really wanted you to hear that, because what they all pulled off was really amazing. So I'm very thankful.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Melanie from Allward. I just want to give an update. We have been doing everything reading since we've come back from our break. And we kicked off the January start with One School, One Book. We read the book Fenway and Hattie, and we had trivia questions every day in the month of January. So it was super fun to talk to the kids during lunch and hear their answers to the trivia questions. And then at the end of it, we actually did an unveiling. We had a teacher write a grant, and we got our book vending machine. So that's super exciting. We unveiled it. We had the Hudsonville Education Foundation come out. We had some school board members come out. And it was just a really fun day. We did it right after our Allward Champion run. Students were really excited about it, and now we have like this bulletin board up. Kids are getting little tokens, one a week in every classroom. And they get to go down to the book vending machine and get a book. So it's been really exciting, and we then went into February and we participated in World Read Aloud Day, and our reading committee did a great job at finding authors from all around the world to read to our students. So we just love to get our kids excited about books and just having them grow as readers.
Hi everyone, Mackenzie Stefanich from Jamestown Lower. I just want to highlight some of the incredible work our teachers are doing outside of their school day that directly benefits our students. In Lower L across the district, one of the most important things we do is teach our children how to read and to fall in love with books. And at Jamestown Lower, we have, I would say, the majority of our teachers participating in a voluntary book study right now to help learn even more about how the brain learns to read. We have a really great curriculum in our Lucy Hawkins reading, writing, and phonics students of study. And this book study we're working on is called Shifting the Balance, so we can take what we know about the science of reading and apply it to our everyday instruction and intervention. And I think probably the coolest thing about this is, of course, I'm really proud of our Jamestown Lower teachers and the work that they're doing to meet every month before school on this book study, but across the district, we have multiple book studies meeting with our literacy coaches. And these teachers are all doing their reading, and they're meeting on their own time, and I just think it speaks to the caliber of the teachers in our district, that they are willing to continue learning and growing their brains to do everything they can to help our students be their very best.
Good evening, Jeremy Verwise, Jamestown Upper. And two things I'd love to highlight. One, with our teachers, we throw around the words guaranteed and viable curriculum often. And I have seen that in a completely new light with my teachers. I have never seen a more consistent group. I just had the other day, I was just trying to bounce into classrooms, and I went to 4th grade and saw the beginning of a science lesson, jumped across the hall, saw the next 10 minutes of the same lesson, jumped across the hall. In the course of 45 minutes, I saw the same lesson in 5 classrooms. Saw the whole thing, start to finish. And I met with them afterwards. I said, how are you guys doing this to such a tight, tight way? And they just said, it's a goal of ours. It's an objective. We know the benefit. We spend the time planning. I was just amazed. And I've now seen that in multiple grades in multiple areas. So just kudos to our teachers spending the time to be that consistent and provide that kind of consistency to our students. Second highlight would be our student leadership team. So we've got 26 students in my building, 2 from each homeroom, that are leaders. And twice now I've gotten to meet with them, spend 45 minutes listening to them dream and plan about how they want to improve the building, it is a riot. It is so much fun. They dream, well, some of their dreams are just insane, but still, they're dreaming and they're planning, and we're going through goals and action steps, and they're putting stuff into practice, and they're creating videos for the morning announcements, and man, just talk about a group of kids that 10, 15 years from now are going to be lighting the world on fire, and they're doing it in a small way right now to improve our building. It's a lot of fun.
Becky Van Someren from Early Childhood. I am excited to just share some different things that are going on. January and February is our enrollment and open house. This year we did, again, a lot of virtual tours and different opportunities for families to see the building. We were really excited about enrollment, and it's going really well. As always, Hudsonville is growing, and we feel that with our young and our before and afters, and it's just what it is to be in Hudsonville. We've got some really neat things going on at the beginning of the, kind of the start of the new year. PBIS, reteaching our students all of the behaviors and all of the expectations that we have at school is just really what we spend January and February doing, and honestly until the end of the year. Part of that is doing some big celebrations, and so in March we'll have a celebration that is a little bit with March Youth Reading Month and also just really fun. And then we'll do another activity in May that will be, again, just a celebration of all of our students' hard work. And we always look forward to putting those on, and the kids absolutely love them. So it's a really great thing. And the teachers are just working so hard at reteaching everything, and our students are working hard at understanding and practicing those skills every day. So it's going really well. We're having fun.
Good evening, board. Randy Waldy from Georgetown. Just to kind of hit on a couple things that have been already said. Yesterday was count day, and amazingly, it's probably the first time with the drop in COVID numbers I think I've had my entire staff in the building in a long, long time, with all my paras, teachers, everyone. It was awesome, and it's needed too, because last week I had a sub in PE, and I ended up pulling a muscle playing with the third graders, and we're going to have to do a couple lessons because they were not very sympathetic to my pain. So I'm going to be in that classroom talking to those kids later, but no, but it's great having everyone in the building and just feeling like we're kind of getting there again. So additionally, like one cool story from this last week, our PE teachers are running Kids Heart fundraiser right now, trying to raise money for health things, for hospitals and things like that. And one of my first grade parents sent a message through the teacher today that her son came home. He was all excited about it, but he just didn't know, how he could have an impact. And so she kind of brainstormed with him, and he came with the idea to collect cans from the neighbors in the neighborhood and stuff. And he ended up going to Meyer and spending over an hour kind of putting all the cans in the machines that we all love to do. And he ended up raising over $120, and was just obviously so proud of himself, which he should be. And it's just so cool that he kind of had that idea to do that. And that's something that all of our kids are kind of proud of right now, doing in their own way. And then lastly, just Becky mentioned March's Reading Month. We have our first meeting with our group inside our building to kind of plan that out for how that's going to look at Georgetown. We like to do a lot of fun activities with it and some challenges for the classrooms, just all around books and reading, get the kids excited, and it helps us get through March, which is always, kind of a long slog uphill towards spring break. So we're excited for that.
Good evening, Joe Szymanski. I'm filling in for Jordan Beal tonight at the high school. A few things happening at the high school. This is National School Counselor Week, and we have at the high school 5 of the very best counselors that you could ask for. Not only do they do a great job with the schedules and for putting students where they need to be successful, they're there as a mental health support for students that just come alongside families and support students from all sorts of different backgrounds. And we really have a great counseling team, and would not be the school that we are without all the time and energy that they put in every single day. So kudos to our counselors and all that they do. We also have athletics wrapping up for winter sports. A lot of our winter sports teams are in the postseason, so it's kind of an exciting time going on right now. Spring sports start in March, which is weird. Spring seems like forever away, but it's only a few weeks away. And finally, we have Tier 2 Tri 2 exams coming soon. And if you think about it, it's crazy. It's the seniors' last trimester is coming up very soon, and the past 2.5 years for our senior group has been wild. And for, I think, every single one of these seniors that's going to be graduating in May, there was a teacher that walked alongside them at one point and kind of pushed them to get through a really challenging situation. So our teaching staff has just gone above and beyond the call and what we've asked them to do to support our students. And they would not be successful without their constant dedication and their passion for students being successful. So, I mean, our teachers do a great job, and seniors are going to be done soon. It's just wild to think about. Wild. That's high school.
Good evening, Bill Ross, Riley Middle. Just highlight two quick things with you. This has been a year where we get to do some things we haven't been able to do in a while. And one thing I'm excited about is to bring our fifth graders for a visit here in about 3 weeks. It was just something that we missed. So we've got some future middle schoolers from South and Georgetown, Forest Grove coming to see us and spend the day with us. And as you know, that just takes down some of the stress that those kids have. They get to spend the day and see the building and connect with us, and something that we're looking forward to. Also looking forward to, I know many of you look forward to the Super Bowl Sunday night, but the team at Riley is looking forward to 6:30 a.m. Monday, when our very own Tanner Oppel will be recognized as the WZZM 13 Teacher of the Week. So about 6:30, 6:45, Tanner will be on there. He's been recognized by a number of our parents. We had an opportunity to do a call with the studio, and Stephanie's helped with some videos. So just something that brings a lot of pride to our district. Many of you know Tanner is a 2013 Hudsonville grad. He was tenacious on the basketball court, but you should see him in the classroom. He's just as tenacious in how he pursues students and connects with them. So we're just excited. All of us are really celebrating the success that Tanner's had, and we're looking forward to celebrating with him early Monday morning.
Good evening, John Gillette from Forest Grove Elementary School. Let's be real, it's Valentine's weekend, so that means all week long we've been celebrating at Forest Grove and all of our elementary schools. We are out of red and pink construction paper, and we are going to be passing out and having kids eat a lot of cupcakes tomorrow. So they are super excited about that. I'm super excited about, I think this afternoon was probably my 7th meeting that I had this week. Just collaborating with parents, with staff members, with specialists from the district. This afternoon, we were working on how we can come up with a device and an app to help a child who struggles with communication. And I just want to give a shout out to parents taking time off work to do that. Obviously, they love their kids and want to partner with us. And there's just a lot of really smart people, a lot smarter people than I was sitting in the room today and every other day this week that are committed to just taking care of kids. And then on the lighter side, speaking of taking care of kids and getting them to school on time, I have a picture to prove it. I'm glad to show you anytime. But on Monday morning, we had quite a bit of snow, and there's always at least 1 or 2 people that are late coming to school at Forest Grove Elementary School. So I was outside waving at people as they were coming in, and about 8:49, a huge John Deere tractor pulls up. A kid jumps out, just flies to get into the building, and it just speaks to the commitment of people. I don't know if a car was stuck in the driveway or they were just working, but it was time to get their kid to school, and they were there and they did it, and super pleased about that.
At Bauer Elementary, things are alive and well. We settled on a theme for Reading Month. Reading takes me places. We're going to cover some different things around the United States. We had a committee meeting for our Watchdogs program, and we are looking into a celebration for this spring. We reviewed feedback from the Watchdogs who have come into the building thus far this year, and the feedback is just very positive. The dads are having a great time and enjoying not just spending time with their children, but in all the classrooms. Dr. Vanderjack came over today and provided a construction update to our staff, and nobody had any opinions about that whatsoever. But seriously, Bauer's excited about the upcoming construction, and people are sending me emails left and right that they want to participate. They're very excited. Our students in our upper ASD program have been swimming all week. This is Cans and Repair Pros taken to the high school. The students are absolutely thrilled. Every day there's smiles. They walk by my office, and they're coming out of their skin literally to just get over there. They enjoy it so much. It's a wonderful experience for them. It's great to see how excited they get. And then on a personal note, with our staff, we're playing a staff Scrabble game. So every staff member got a tile on a piece of paper with just like on a Scrabble chip. And they're making words, and then they take a photograph and email that to me. Our printers are out of toner because I've printed so many pictures, but the staff are having a lot of fun in their off time taking these pictures, and it's a way to brighten up and just cheer folks up during the month of February, which is pretty long historically in schools. So that's something fun that we're doing at Power right now. Thank you. Oh,
Didn't want to miss you. Mark Eagle, South Elementary School. All of Andy's jargon, I love it because we're a Title I school at South, and so it reminds me of so much of the Title I, who's eligible, who's not eligible, which parapros are under this and which parapros are under that. And January is a good time to reflect because we go through a whole bunch of assessments with our students to look at their progress, and it takes everybody, which you hear a lot. Speech therapists and our support staff parapros and our teachers and parents who come in and volunteer and parents who work with their kids at home, everybody. And it's good to celebrate. Everybody knows me well enough to know if you ask any staff member what's one of Mark's top flaws, I'm not a great celebrator. But we did celebrate a week or so ago because we started at South with almost 150 students eligible for Title I services at the beginning of the year with our first round of assessments right away. And as of the January assessments, we almost cut that in half already. And that is no small task when you look at Title I for us is the most needy students that we have. So they're 2+ reading levels below where they should be. Or their math scores, they have multiple areas where they scored very low in proficiency through our assessments, and we were able to take almost half of them off of the map already, which means they're getting closer or on grade level, and so now our targets just continue to move and adjust onto the next set of kids that we're working with, and we'll continue to do that work and see how far we can get with as many of those kids as possible. So it's always fun to celebrate when you can statistically, because I'm a math science guy, look at all of those little kids and say, wow, they're making progress. Lighter side, Joe, we've got one of our second graders signed up to come to high school next year. I was walking down the hallway and one of our second graders stopped me and I was not paying close enough attention, obviously, because he kind of was levitating his fingers in front of his throat. He said, Mr. Eagle, I'm going to be going to high school real soon. And I said, really, why is that? It's like, I already have a beard starting. And he has this one strand of hair that he's pulling straight out. So I didn't want to break the news to him that we really kind of go on readiness from academics, but in the beard department, he's in it.
Dawn Herma from Park Elementary. I don't remember who was talking about, I think Becky Van Starman, talking a little bit about the beginning of the enrollment process, and that got me thinking about our amazing administrative assistants, and they have a whole new system in place this year, and Robin, sitting right in front of you, gets a huge shout out. She's guiding everybody through this process, and it's been a lot of time, I know, on Robin's part, and also on the admin's part as they just figure this all out. And those staff members have been working probably at least twice as hard as they usually do in the last couple of years, just managing all of the COVID stuff. I know many of you know the administrative assistant at Park, Deb Lidgard. She's been there for a really long time, and she's superhuman. She has driven to kids' house to drop things off. She's always cleaning up blood and chasing people out in the parking lot. She's amazing. We have a student at school, first grader this week. They were talking about what they want to be when they grow up, and he said, I know what I'm going to be. I'm going to be a Mr. Carl Lidgard. And his goal in life was to, I think we determined that he thought the role was a Lidgard, and he was going to be one when he got older. So he is going for her job. We've now teased her about that quite a bit. One thing that we've been focusing on at Park this month is Black History Month. Some of our staff members came to me and had a really cool idea to put together, it's kind of hard to describe, so I encourage you to come and look at them. They are artistic murals, and so we chose 25-ish, enough for each classroom. Each classroom teacher chose a famous or well-known Black American or Black historical figure. And the kids, there's 30 squares, so each child gets a square, and they follow directions to color the squares, and then when we tape them all together, it makes a picture of someone like Nelson Mandela, Jackie Robinson, all kinds of different people. So they have these big murals hanging outside of all of the classrooms, and then we put together a scavenger hunt for the building. So as the kids find the different figures, there are picture books connected with each figure, so classroom teachers can read the books with kids and learn more about important people in history. And another shout out to Deb with this, because she was game to make one with The Office. And so everybody who came anywhere near her, she was like, get a crayon, color this square. And so we hung up The Office one today. So I think I'm the last one. Unless anybody behind me wants to make an update.
You're good, Ben? Got everybody? All right, good. Thanks for the update, everyone. That's awesome to hear what's going on in the buildings. Yeah. We move on to superintendent report next.
So just a couple highlights. As Josh said, I did spend some time at Bauer Elementary this morning, yesterday at Park Elementary. Those are the next two major phases of construction. If you remember, the goal was to get a gymnasium added to the 3 elementaries that did not have one. Forest Grove, as soon as the snow melts, which sounds like could be next week, they're going to start, or Forest, did I say that right? Forest Grove? They'll start the construction of the gym at Forest Grove. But the design of both Park and Bauer are the next major design projects. So that'll take about 13 months to design before we go to bid, and that process will begin next month. So I met with their staff. It sounds like the key to Bauer is the gym would be nice, but bathrooms is the key. That's all I heard. We need bathrooms, so we'll figure that part out. The governor did release her budget this week. I'll share some more information with the board tomorrow. There's a lot of information there. We still are waiting to hear feedback from the Senate and House and how they'll compare, and then we'll see where they come together and hopefully finalize the budget by July 1, so we can be ready to go to start the school year next year. As Mr. Szymanski mentioned, it is Counselor Appreciation Week, and it's more than just a week. These are people that trained to be counselors but didn't sign up to be counselors during a pandemic. Similar to our staff members, similar to our administrators, the job of working with kids and youth in systems that we work with in today's day and age, particularly the last 23 months, it's just taken a whole new appreciation for what they do. I see them in action in the classrooms. I have a junior, so going through parent-teacher conferences, I just get more and more impressed every single day with the staff that we have that you have employed to put in front of these young adults and these kids. The administrators, the countless hours that they put in, their administrative assistants, their custodians, the bus drivers that they are not going to reach out and ask for a snow day tomorrow because you know what? They want to see their kids in the morning and they're going to drop off at the end of the day. I'm just impressed to be part of this district. I want to thank you for letting me spend time with our staff. Mrs. Armstrong talked a little bit about COVID numbers. We're encouraged by that. We're seeing that countywide. We have discussions. We still meet twice a week as superintendents throughout the county. We continue to see those numbers. We're optimistic, but we're cautiously optimistic. We still know that we have people that are adversely affected by this, and we want to make sure we keep that in mind and support them through this process. We're also winding down. 2 weeks from tomorrow is the end of the second trimester for our high school kids. So as I leaned over to President Hall a few minutes ago, I said that means that at the end of the next trimester, our kids are seniors, which is scary to think. I still remember him at Bauer Elementary as a little peanut running through that building. And just a reminder, I don't think anybody will forget this. We do have next week, Monday and Tuesday, off as midwinter break. And I think it's because of maybe the Super Bowl. I don't know. All I know is we're going to all get up Monday morning bright and early to congratulate Mr. Appel and his recognition. So that's my update.
All right, with that, we'll move on to recognition of visitors and hearing of people present. I believe we have a couple of people that registered this evening, so Robin will call out your name. And please keep comments to 3 minutes and address comments to the board. Robin, who do we have first?
Abby Labarge.
Good evening, board members, teachers, community members, and students. I am one of your teachers. I am also a former student of Hudsonville Public Schools, all the way K through 12. When I was at HPS, I was the kid who did everything. I was a student athlete, a student council member, homecoming court representative in band and plays, an avid reader. I was even my class graduation speaker. I went to college after my high school graduation thinking I was prepared for everything the world had to throw at me. A lot of 18-year-olds do. I quickly realized that my education had not prepared me for everything. I had grown up rather centrally focused, my experience, my goals, my life. I had not done much in my young years to advocate for those with special needs, learning disabilities, those who belong to marginalized groups based on race or religion or sexual orientation, and I felt ashamed of that. Fortunately, my undergraduate degree experience, my time teaching in other states and other cities, and my final master's project, 60 pages on the benefits of diverse books for students, allowed me to grow in that empathy. My hope this evening is to encourage all of you in continuing to see books as a learning tool that can be part of Hudsonville's solutions, not part of Hudsonville's problems. Looking at our disciplinary data through the Department of Education Civil Rights Data Collection, anyone can see the discrepancies as to how our students with special needs and students of color are disproportionately disciplined in comparison to their counterparts. I also see and hear things every day as a teacher, comments from kids that break my heart, insulting kids based on appearance, making inappropriate and hateful comments, excluding others due to their religion or lack thereof. I love all of my students so very much, and I know choice reading exposes students to different perspectives and how that can help aid in building this empathy that I myself didn't fully grasp as a student when I was in these halls. I'm an advocate for books showing the tough realities of our world, and I'm an advocate for books that showcase a diverse pool of characters, all because I'm an advocate for our kids, and I know you are as well. Please continue to do what is best for all of our students by allowing them agency, choice, and access to grow. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. Next, Robin.
Badisha Kyle.
Good evening, members of the board and community. My name is Benicia Kyle. You know, I had all these things planned to say and statements and a whole speech written and masks and banning books and history lessons and concern for where curriculum's going, et cetera, and then I threw them all out. I scrapped it all because no one's listening. No one's listening. No one's listening to each other. No one's listening to the experts. So that's why I'm here today. Like, tonight I want to talk to you about experts. But I think ultimately a lot of it boils down to numbers, right? So let's look at some undisputable facts. According to publicschoolsview.com, Hudsonville ranks, as of 2019, number 24 out of 872 schools districts in Michigan. That's a top 5%. Test scores as of 2019, language arts, 74 proficient compared to 49 statewide. Mathematics, 65% proficient compared to 40 statewide. Graduation rates as of 2022, 96% compared to 85 statewide. The average teacher in Hudsonville, I believe this is a little low, makes 49, so that means that some make more, some make less, but clearly you all are here for the money, right? I mean, so, why do I bring you these stats? Because numbers talk, and we're 24 in Michigan. Our teachers, they aren't failing. They aren't. They're dedicated, loving, intelligent, and capable. They have worked through a pandemic. They dedicated their lives to teaching your child at home while they themselves were dealing with all that. And you know what we do in response? We fight. Our community has been fighting with each other, with them, with the superintendents, with the principals, but the numbers show they're doing their job. So I want it to stop. First it's a poster in a classroom, then it's a conversation in a class that makes people uncomfortable, then it's masks, then it's when that's over, one side won in the community. Now we're on to history and English, and that's not, according to Oxford Languages, experts are a person who has a comprehensive and authoritative knowledge of a skill in a particular area. Let me remind you, teachers are the experts in their fields. They went to college, they go back to college, they do EDUs. Teachers have earned expert status, just like mechanics, doctors, farmers. They've proven themselves every single day. And Dr. Vanderjack, our superintendent, he is an expert in his field. He, he's dedicated to leader navigating, etc. I'm sorry, I am a 3-day hour, but the fact is they're doing their job, and I would really like them to be the focus.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, that's what we have, Robin? Okay. All right, with that, we'll do a board roundtable, and then we'll adjourn.
Just thank you. I know there's been a lot of challenges. I'm glad to hear again the COVID numbers are getting better. I just applaud the staff. I think we've got a lot of amazing things going on in the district. I know we're always striving to do better and better for kids. It's great to have the outcomes data tonight, so Amy, thank you for sharing that, and look forward to the further discussions on that. Dr. Vanderjack, I know at our last meeting we had a lot of discussions about the book guidelines. I know that there was some follow-up. I don't know if you could just update us on when that will be back to the board for discussion again, but I appreciate all the progress that's been made. I know everybody is doing the best they can to support our kids and address issues as they come up and make sure that we've got processes for concerns to be addressed.
Sorry. Echo a lot of what Chad said, and also thank you to those in the community who continue to email, not just when you're upset, but when you have something positive to say and have encouraging words. And I will say that that's been probably the highlight of this year since the first of the year. It's been very much appreciated.
Rob, I'd just like to say thanks to you and the bus garage for probably 10 years we've held off on buying buses like we want to, and you guys have held them together. And we've got a great fleet, never had problems in our inspections to speak of, and safe fleet, and you did it while we kind of tied one hand behind your back and didn't replace the fleet like it should be. And it's nice to see us getting back to that point, but thank you for keeping us through it and moving up there.
I'm looking forward to next month, I hope, because I should start being a kid's hope mentor at South, which means I'll have to do Mr. Hebo, but I think I can do that. But I'm looking forward to getting together with a young person and helping.
Excellent. All right, with that, can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Motion by Steve, support by Larry. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Have a good winter break.